Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
Good morning, I'm Rob Woodard. You're listening to Sunday Journal. Today the show is taking a field trip. I'm at the JFK Museum in Hyannis with John Allen. He's the executive director of the museum. He's going to give us a tour of a special exhibit featuring intimate photos, mementos, and videos of the Kennedy family taken by a close friend. They show the family at ease at their Hyannisport compound. Good morning, John. Thanks for having me in this morning.
Thanks very much, Rob. We're glad to have you here, and I think this will be an interesting way to talk about this exhibit this year.
Well, I've been looking around as I've come in here, and I can see that there are some very intimate photos here, things that people probably have never been able to see before. Where did these pieces come from?
We were introduced earlier this year to Robert Ludington. Robert Ludington was the interior designer to Rose Kennedy and the Kennedy family starting in 1957, and he worked with her for nearly 50 years. He still is today working with various members of the Kennedy family on their homes. But what he was able to share with us, because of our interest in kind of this, the theme is the heart and home of the Kennedy family. In many ways, the main house is an international icon, and people can see it from the outside, but what we wanted to do is bring him inside the house.
Right, so I can see as we start the tour here, these are the kind of iconic pictures that the world is familiar with. The house high up on the bluff, the clear blue sky, the flag flying. What can you tell me about these pictures?
Well, what you're seeing is that it really is a majestic-looking house. It has expansive space on its location there, and it really was the anchor of what became the compound. The compound comprised of Bob Kennedy's house, Robert Kennedy's house, and President Kennedy's, John Kennedy's home and back. So those were the three items of the compound. What we also show with this picture of the house is the President's Marine One landing and coming off with some officials, and then another photo showing the family there with his children greeting him and welcoming him back from Washington.
And then as we move along here, we see some of the photos and some of the material that was used in the living room. Now, I'm imagining this is when Mrs. Kennedy, Rose Kennedy, was doing some decorating in the area?
Exactly. What we've done is really show the whole front of the house, which is the living room, the sunroom, and the dining room. And she started her work in 1957 with Bob Ludington. And you'll see through each of the rooms, starting in the living room, you'll see photos everywhere. She was very intent on bringing the family to life through the photos that she had on tables, on the piano, on the mantle. And she brought together, and we have a sample of the fabric, some very bright colors and some interesting combinations of draperies and fabrics on sofas and chairs that showed a formal but not still would be very welcoming as a family. It wouldn't be stiffy.
Yeah, no, it seems very colorful and welcoming and clearly indicative of the decor at the time.
As we move to the next room, which would be the sunroom, that is really where today even, while there's some meetings there, it's kind of the action place of the main house. And it goes across as you're looking at the house on the right side, looking out to the ocean. But it was a room that was, again, decorated in a colorful fabric on the drapes and on the sofa and chairs and the rug, with many pictures around, many of the collection of English china that she collected and really revered. And we've also been able to show, and when people come and see, what the president was doing. We show a meeting of the defense budget planning. We show the morning when Lyndon Johnson came down, and they were just celebrating his being elected president.
And then as we move along here, we can see the dining room, which by today's standards is incredibly modest. And it looks like they obviously these were taken by someone who was very close with the family. And what are we seeing here?
We're seeing here, how it would look in its sense of being ready for an event with the table. But more importantly, what we display is the Ambassador Kennedy's 75th birthday, which was that September of 1963. And it shows a table with the family members all sitting around, obviously festive gear, and they have hats on, and you can see they're very happy talking to each other and the ambassador. It transformed this very formal room, but very modest, into a gala. It looked like any family gathering for an important birthday.
Sure. And now, one thing I was not aware of that the home had was an actual home theater, which I'm guessing was probably one of the first in the country.
Well, probably in its day, it was one of the first, probably in the East, because Joe Kennedy was an early-on investor in talkie films. And the story is that the Hollywood set thought he was kind of crazy to be investing that way. Well, I think he proved them wrong. But what he did is he built a home theater in the basement with 30 seats, or wooden seats. It looks like a little auditorium on its own. A little projection. They have a little tapestry on one of the walls. But it was used actively. They had, in fact, today there still are two major projectors that are down there that were, frankly, museum pieces today that they use to display the film. And then obviously they've converted to modern, transmission.
Sure. And as we move along here, we see a picture now. Is this the sunroom again?
This is the sunroom again, and it's kind of a formal picture of the children and spouses with the ambassador. It really is a photo that people stop and look at, and really you feel good about this is a family that cared about each other when you see this image.
Absolutely. And so moving over here now, we're going to take a look at the bedrooms of some of the family members. What can you tell me now? There's one indicated here that is JFK's bedroom.
This is the first floor, the only first floor bedroom in the main house, and it was for President Kennedy. As a lot of people know, he had health problems as a youngster and through his adult life. So it's a very modest-looking twin-bed bedroom with the decor that Mrs. Kennedy put in. But what was significant in listening to Bob Ludington is that once the president passed, she made sure that the room was never altered, and it's still in that state today. It probably would be one of the most pristine President Kennedy sites in the country today. And then adjacent to it, on the other side, is what would be called the TV room. And if you look at that, it is very Spartan and very modest. But yet on the other wall are 3 or 4 collages of pictures, which, again, Rose tries to bring the family events and family activities together through photos, and it's very graphic on this one.
Yeah, it's clearly visible. In almost every picture that we see here, there is some sort of photographs or collection of photographs in every room, sort of showing what the family was up to at a particular point in time. Now, when we look here at Mrs. Kennedy and Mr. Kennedy's bathrooms here, again, very modest. Now, you were pointing out something here. What's that on the wall? It looks like some sort of a dial. It might be a barometer or something.
Well, that was an interesting one. Again, most people see this pretty Spartan and modest in what they had there, but it looks like a barometer or some sort of a wind guide, and it turns out that the ambassador had the scale built into the wall with the scale reading at eye level, and there's a little square on the floor that you can see where he would stand. So to most people, you would pick those off as kind of an ocean house and it'd be kind of a seaworthy. So it was very interesting that he did that. It was personalized, and here's kind of the trait that this is someone who knew how to kind of get things done.
On his own terms, no doubt. And now we move over here to where there's an exhibit of the kitchen. And again, is the kitchen, is it still pretty much in the same shape?
It really is. Having been at the house recently, the only thing that would be different is the cooking surface in the kitchen area, but the area looks the same in the kitchen area, and there's kind of a butler's pantry. What was interesting, Bob Luddy pointed out, when you see it, there's a long table there with some items on it. But what the cook would do was leave spoons out on that corner. And as Kennedy members came in, they always would pick up a spoon and go over to the grill or the stove and have a taste of what's cooking. So that was kind of legendary. That was an important requirement that those be available for the people who come in here. And it goes on today, in all honesty, when they do use the kitchen.
They allow the people in the house to taste whatever's coming up. Now, I noticed that you've got several video monitors around as well. What can you tell me about what's playing on these?
Well, what we really feel we wanted to convey is the sense of one video shows the house, and it's a collection of several sources of videos, some from the JFK library, some from in-person interviews we've had with Senator Kennedy, some from private collections. But it really begins, and there's what we're looking at right now. It's when the president was first elected, and that was their first seating in the main house there. And all the collection. There's three that focus on the main house. It really shows the dimension of what the compound represented to the Kennedy family. He was a president. When he came home, this was an important part of his life and their life, and was the heart, and it was their home, and the people know that around the world. Secondly, you really have a chance to see the family dynamics. It just is compelling, and you don't feel like this is any different family than what you would do yourself if you saw someone coming back from having been away. So we try to show. The third thing, Rob, is they live like locals. There's opportunities to see what they've been doing and moving and people around their homes, but they really were local people. They were neighbors to people in Hyannis and Hyannisport.
Oh, sure. They were here long before President Kennedy became president or even senator, I think, right?
That's correct. Well, the ambassador bought the main house. The first cottage was in 1926.
And now here are some other photos. These of obviously very young Robert and John Kennedy kind of lounging on one particular area of the main house.
It is, and it really shows, this is a family, this is in their early 50s to mid-50s, and they spent a lot of time together. And if you look at different sequences of the family history, you'll see ongoing. They're always in the yard. This was part of where the family came together. This is what they did things, either as the brothers and sisters together, but also with all the children.
And now, did this material in the videos, did that come from Mr. Ludington as well?
No, these we had, but we blended those in. But they certainly amplify the whole feel of someone visiting the main house, being out in the grounds, watching the Kennedy family having their life, or just kind of being together as siblings, and more importantly, seeing some of the business of the president being done here.
I'm Rob Woodard. You're listening to Sunday Journal. Today I'm on a field trip. I'm at the JFK Museum in Hyannis with John Allen. He's the executive director of the museum, and he's taking us on a tour of a special exhibit featuring intimate family photos, mementos, and videos of the Kennedys taken by a close friend, showing the family at ease in their Hyannisport compound. Now, as we move along here, John, I see that we've got some more family photos that illustrate just how large the family was and just how kind of at ease they were at the compound.
Right. We have this is a photo we've kept in this exhibit area because it shows Rose with her grandchildren, and it's there's probably about 15 or 16 there, and all from a little baby in one of the granddaughter's arms to the kids who look like they're 10 and 11. And you can see some of them are restless, some are kind of trying to get away, but it really was a great way of showing how important family was to Rose. Rose really focused on the family. She was the glue, the ambassador, and she both set the standards that they all live by, I believe, today, which is family. It's public service, commitment to public service, and clearly the whole issue of faith that they all had, particularly in the not so good times when they all come together. And I think even today we all can recall events that have been happening in the Kennedy family, and they always are there for each other.
Yeah, you can see they're obviously very close and a large but otherwise typically American family. Now, this exhibit behind us here, it's a large Kennedy family tree. What can you tell me about that?
Well, in the issue of our representing the Kennedy family, we've had this is the third version of a family tree. We show 3 generations after Joe and Rose, and we show, as you look at this, it's a pretty expansive. In fact, it's 175 inches long and 55 inches high, and it shows the children of the Kennedy family and the ongoing down to the 3rd generation. And many of the names you would look at here are names that you would know today in either public service, public life, and doing works of good around the world. And it's remarkable, and obviously we just this week had young Joe Kennedy III to launch a youth speaker series, and he's very committed to public service. So in many ways it shows what started with Joe and Rose to people who today have the work of and the commitment to public service.
And quite a large group, as anyone who comes and sees the exhibit. Now, we've just got a few minutes left, John, so I wanted you to maybe briefly discuss what we're seeing as we come to the end of this special exhibit here.
As you leave the exhibit room, we have a video going which kind of has a summer White House feel to it. We show different events going on in and around the compound and also in some of the work of the President Kennedy, one of which was when he was over in Ireland, which was his last international trip. And it really is remarkable because you hear him speak and you hear his humor, but more importantly, you watch how people loved him outside the U.S., and it was pretty remarkable. And then finally, we have a picture of Jackie Kennedy and a portrait of John Jr. And we put them here because it's the 20th anniversary of Jackie's death in May of this year, and then July 16th will be the 15th anniversary of the death of John Jr.
It's amazing that time has gone by. So seems so quickly in both those cases. Now, one final thing let's take a look at is this bronze statue here.
We were recently given this donation from a school district outside of Boston, the Everett School District, where one of the teachers, right after John was killed, had this commissioned. It's a life-size of John saluting his dad that we all iconically can recall and picture very vividly, or people have seen that who weren't there at the time. But more importantly, it conveys this important remembrance of what John Jr. was at an important time in his dad's life.
Well, thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it. It's a fascinating exhibit, and I'm sure you'll get many, many visitors through. You're listening to Sunday Journal. Today, I was on a field trip at the JFK Museum in Hyannis with John Allen, who is the executive director, and he gave us a tour of a special exhibit featuring intimate photos, mementos, and videos of the Kennedy family taken by Robert Ludington. He was a close friend and interior designer for the family. I'm Rob Woodard. This is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.